It's confusing out there. Trudy wants to go to the office tomorrow. She needs that work-life separation. But she also needs to work in pajamas. Work says nothing. She's confused. James wants to call his old man, but calling someone old is wrong, right? It's okay to be old, just not to be called old. Is it adjectives that are the problem? He's confused. These are confusing times, which is just about the right time to have the Burger King Impossible Whopper. A Whopper made without beef that tastes just like a Whopper. I don't know.
This is Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
I'm the only lawyer ever to obtain a court ruling that a president of the United States committed a crime.
For truth. For competition.
As a young lawyer, I helped break up AT&T. That's why you have all your cell phones today.
For sovereignty. For the Republic.
I'm the guy who at Judicial Watch, which I founded, uncovered the Chinagate scandal. Millions of dollars going to the Clinton campaign, corrupting our political system.
For the privacy of citizens.
And I'm the only guy to have enjoined the National Security Agency from mass surveillance on hundreds of millions of Americans.
Tearing it up.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
Bringing it back.
We're going to take this country apart and put it back together again in the way envisioned by our founding fathers.
It's not just talk.
We're not just regurgitating news stories. Larry Klayman, special prosecutor, is making the news.
And now, here's Larry.
Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. It's an important show. I have some great co-host, Franklin Raff, tremendous talent, radio talk show host in his own right, great producer. Used to produce for Radio America, and among the many shows was G. Gordon Liddy's show, which I was on from time to time. And later on in the show, we're going to have Pat Boone, who's my very good friend and someone who understands what it takes to bring this country back from the dead. And that's where we are now. You know, my Hebrew name, as I've said earlier in the week in the podcast, is Lazer Elia, Lazarus, okay? I hope to play my role in bringing this country back from the dead as Lazarus rose from the dead, because that's where we are right now with regard to the leftist takeover of this country. It's nearly complete. Every day there's a new outrage, a new enslavement of the American people with regard to its socialist, communist, atheist, radical, Muslim, radicals on the Jewish left, Marxians, radicals, LGBTQs, radical atheists that have taken over this country. And that's why I brought Pat Boone on today, because he needs to tell us exactly what it's going to take. I'm getting choked up. Excuse me. What it's going to take to bring this country back. But I don't want people to be deceived. You know, I wrote the book, It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry, and I want to get Franklin's take on this. I think that the subtitle is equally as important as the first title. Yes, we need to wage a revolution, peaceful and legal, with citizens' grand juries, with a third continental Congress. I believe we need to form a new government. This government clearly does not represent the American people. And we'll be doing a third continental Congress in Philadelphia at Independence Hall, right across the street from Independence Hall at the Visitor Center on Memorial Day of this year. Franklin's invited, Pat's invited, everybody's invited. You're invited. And we need citizens' grand juries to mete out justice. We need to take our justice system back. And we're going to be having a citizens' grand jury on March 17th, seeking the indictment of Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, and Frank Biden for massive bribery from communist China, Ukraine, and Russia. We have the Manchurian candidate in office today. But I don't want you to be fooled by what you see on Fox News. Fox News has become the tool of the Republican establishment. You can see Karl Rove now, has assumed a prominent position. You have Chris Wallace, who's pretty far left. He's not even at the level of being establishment Republican. And now they're promoting CPAC because they're trying to get their viewership back. CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Conference, a bunch of Republican lobbyists, that's what they are, raking in money They actually opposed Donald Trump for president. They threw their lot with him because they realized that would jingle the change. And frankly, most of the people that go to CPAC, basically they talk, but they don't do much of anything. And how do you get a speech at CPAC, generally speaking, or how do you get an award? Donate $50,000 and you'll get it. My former group, Judicial Watch, gives them $50,000 a year. Fitton gets a speech and an award. I guess maybe if he gave a little more, he might actually become numero uno at CPAC. But in any event, I don't want people to be fooled by the rhetoric that's out there right now. We need to act right now, okay? And to hear the same speeches over and over and over again, the Republican Party has failed. The Republican Party is dead. We need to move on. And one of the other things I'm going to be doing, Franklin, I want you to comment on all of this, is I'm setting up a separate organization. We're going to form a new political party because obviously even the Republican Party, the establishment wing of that in particular, threw Donald Trump under the bus. And that's why we now have Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Franklin, take it away with your wise thoughts.
Larry, thanks for letting me join you here, and it's fun to work with Al Peterson again at Radio America. One of the most remarkable things to me after this Reichstag fire event, and you remember 1933, Hitler would never have had the power he had it not been for the Reichstag fire, very probably lit by Hitler's own people, which he later blamed on communists and Bolsheviks and Jews, and therefore emergency measures were passed, which limited everybody's rights. And this bit of news from just this past week is the most remarkable example. And you know what I'm talking about. These House Democrats pressing cable and satellite and streaming providers, guys like us, about their decisions to carry Fox News and One America News Network and Newsmax and other outlets. So what we have all of a sudden, and I think this is the first time, right, in the history of our United States, where the government is at liberty and takes the initiative to criticize and criminalize, literally criminalize, news outlets which criticize the government. So it's an astonishing denial of constitutional rights by those who are sworn to uphold them. And it's just a wild, wild grab for intellectual power and information, dissemination of information in our country. It's just the most astonishing thing. This one news item screams injustice.
What specific news item are you referring to? I'm not sure that people understand what Reichstag means.
Oh, well, what I'm talking about, of course, is what you were mentioning, the so-called riots on Capitol Hill, which have been used in truth, by our own government to make moves toward limiting the free speech of Americans in criticizing their own government, which is precisely what the Constitution guarantees. Our Constitution guarantees our right to, for instance, criticize our own government. And anything else is totalitarianism. And this move by these House Democrats, sort of ganged up together, Anna Eshoo and Jerry McCurney, among others, both from California, sent these letters, right, to AT&T and Verizon and Roku and Apple, right, Comcast, to get them to subvert conservative programming on their dissemination mechanisms, cable mostly.
Well, this full court press against conservatives, this attempt to eradicate conservatives, is throughout this country. And you made reference, and I've been making reference to it as well, to what went on. Excuse me, I have a little postnasal drip today. What went on in the years leading up to Nazi Germany is that you had Hitler, of course, taking control, and then various aspects of society, virtually all of it, some who believed in what Hitler was doing and others who didn't but went along because he was the winner, took control of Germany and kept him in power. Everyone from Mercedes to BMW to the Deutsche Bank, which financed the concentration camps, believe it or not. That was the financier, the mortgagor of Clinton's first house at Chappaqua. I killed that at Judicial Watch with Deutsche Bank. Evil bunch of people, I might add. And this is what you're dealing with today. So every aspect of society, whether it's sports leagues, labor unions, whether it's corporations cutting off credit, to conservatives, those who support Trump, what they're doing to Mike Lindell of MyPillow, a good Christian man who believes in Judeo-Christian values, bar associations that try to eliminate conservative lawyers like me. They won't succeed. This is the District of Columbia bar, which is run by a bunch of leftist corrupt hacks. These are the things that are out there, and they're forcing the American people to rise up. And that's what they did on January 6th. But even the Republican Party, these clowns in the Republican Party, this is terrible. This is an insurrection. We have to put it down. It's not just Democrats. It's the Republican establishment. And, listen to Karl Rove on Fox News. And that's why I say, when people get addicted to the cable networks and they get addicted to this conservative rhetoric and don't do anything, put their feet up on the coffee table and they start munching on corn chips and eating Coca-Cola or wine or God knows what else. This is very dangerous. We, the people, need to rise up right now. And January 6th was not an aberration. January 6th was not an insurrection. January 6th was the people letting off steam. It was a warning for things to come. And Thomas Jefferson predicted it. And he said it's probably going to happen mostly as a result of federal judges, unelected, unaccountable to the people who do not defend the American people. And we saw that in the election challenges that we just experienced, where even the Supreme Court would not hear the cases.
Larry, one of the problems that Americans have is that the criminalization of free speech, the exercise of free speech, has become endemic. It's in our schools. People get doxxed, if you're familiar with the term. They're fired. People are terrified. And frankly, I am too. It's really, really hard. The people who are sitting with their feet up on the coffee table, as you say, are often very active mentally, but they don't know what to do. People lose their jobs now for thinking the wrong way. And that's we go back to 1933, 1934, 1935, these moments in which it becomes unacceptable to disobey your government overlords, even by speaking out.
Well, that's right. And what I want to avoid is a scandal industry, Franklin, is that people profit off of the nature of what's going on right now. And we need to really sober up and remember that our founding fathers risked their lives. They pledged their fortunes and sacred honor to form a new nation. We have to take risks. And we not only have to be able to speak clearly, we need to act clearly. And that's why I wrote the book, It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry. This is action. This is not just getting documents and going on TV and saying, look what I found out. You have to take what you found out and do something about it. I'm going to be right back with Franklin Raff for our second segment. I want to talk about the dumbing down of our universities, how that is, in fact, contributing to the decay of our culture and to, frankly, if we don't do something about it, the end of our country. I'll be right back.
Dangerous.
Don't care. Use the court and the law.
Lethal.
This is bad.
Special prosecutor.
Very bad.
Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
I'm back with Franklin Raff. People can sometimes wonder why, I get really tough with people and entities and institutions. And the reason is unless you call it out, it's not going to change. I'm one of those institutions that I've been tough on is my own alma mater, Duke University, which has become like the Berkeley of the South. Not only did they allow Muslim prayer in the middle of campus, and that's fine. If the Muslims want to pray, let them pray. That's fine. Better that they do that than something else. But it disrupted the entire campus. You remember the Duke lacrosse scandal, where the lacrosse players were drummed out of Duke University. The reputation's ruined because an African-American female made an allegation of sexual harassment, which was a complete fraud. And my own university, which I used to be very proud of, has basically thrown in the towel and, in my view, become a disgrace. And the latest example because Duke University is at the level of an Ivy League school. Franklin went to Yale. He knows what I'm talking about. I guess Duke's become like Yale in many ways, ideologically. But the thing that really has gotten under my skin is that they've compromised academic integrity with a practice called one and done. You know, Duke is the premier basketball school probably in American history, even surpassing Kentucky and North Carolina and Indiana. And Coach K, at one point, Coach Krzyzewski, was a very, very good coach. He did a lot of good for the school. But basically, he threw in the towel like everybody else in this country these days. And the people that he's recruiting, just so he can win, just so he can have the all-time record as a college basketball coach, are recruited with no expectation of them ever graduating, much less even going to school. It's called one and done. Go to Duke University. You can play for Coach K. You can leave after 1 year and go to the NBA. Now, this tells you something about our institutions. Because when I went to Duke University, kids actually had to go to class. The basketball players were just like us. Maybe they took easier classes. I don't know. I mean, there was a list for football and basketball players, but they graduated. Now, you've got this guy right now, Franklin. I want you to comment on it. Jalen Johnson, who was a top recruit of Coach K, and he goes there and he gets hurt. And just yesterday, he quits. He doesn't want to get hurt anymore. And he decides he's not even going to be a student anymore. And yet, alumni and others are paying for this guy to get a scholarship and go to school. And I think that if an institution like Duke is sold out like that, it tells you something about the entire country.
Larry, sports has always been important to universities, and especially for Duke. What is most remarkable is that this happens under a cloud of extreme leftist ideology that for the first time is promoted by America's universities in a manner which explicitly, and by that, you know, people use words pretty easily around here. You know, this is radio, right? But I mean explicitly seeks, knowingly, willingly, and they announce their willingness to delete the opinions, the organizations, the student groups which are conservative and critical of these notions. And that's a first for American colleges and universities. They've always been bastions of free speech, and all of a sudden, those days are over. Am I right?
No, you're right. But what really bothers me is that, you see, the foundations of our institutions, in this case, Duke University, to get a good education, is just being used as a minor league for the NBA. I think that's a bastardization of the academic integrity of schools. It's not just Duke, it's other schools as well that do that. And when you see that, it's a fraud. It's a fraud on the student body. It's a fraud on the alumni. It's a fraud on the American people. These people aren't students. They're paid ringers. And that's, you know, it's symptomatic of our entire society, including our politicians who are paid ringers by special interest groups representing themselves, not the American people. Just like these students, these athletes, which aren't students, aren't representing the student body of Duke University.
Mm-hmm. And Jalen Johnson, of course, is getting injuries on a level of a pro because they're forced to perform very near a pro level when, to give them a bit of sympathy, they should be studying. And I'm really pleased to join you on this, Larry.
Well, we have just about 15 seconds left. Franklin, I'm going to bring you back again someday when I don't have postnasal drip. Okay, so I appreciate your filling in here. But listen, we got Pat Boone coming on, and our only salvation is to turn back to God right now. We need it really badly. Listen to what Pat has to say, because it's very, very important. And I want to wish everyone the best, because we're going to need it, and we need God's help. We'll be right back with Pat Boone.
And now, 4 words that make corrupt politicians make wee-wee in their little pants.
Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
Be the one who makes our country great again. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and donate.
This land is mine. God gave this land to me. This brave, this golden land to me. And when the morning sun reveals her hills and plains, I see a land where children can run free. So take my hand and walk this land with me, and walk this lovely land with me. Though I am just a man, when you are by my side, with the help of God, I know I can be strong. So take my hand and walk this land with me, and walk this golden land with me. Though I am just a man, when you are by my side, with the help of God, I know I can be strong to make this land our home. If I must fight, I'll fight to make this land our own, until I die. This land is mine.
In my opinion, this is the greatest song ever written. Pat Boone wrote that song. He was singing it, the great Pat Boone. I'm very privileged to have him as my friend and my colleague. He's on the line right now. And I invited him because we're going through very difficult times right now where we have to look to the Father and the Son to save us. And Israel obviously is where it all began. And it's where it all, hopefully not, will end. But Pat, welcome to Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. I wanted to get your take. And that song is just so moving. It's unbelievable to me. Of course, the movie Exodus, they used that song in that movie as well with Paul Newman. And I want to get your take on where we are today in our country and our culture and where we're headed. And that song is an inspiration for all of us.
Well, it certainly is to me as well. And I get goosebumps when I hear it. Larry, it was late 1959 when I wrote that. And it was because the melody that Ernest Gold had written for the movie was already becoming a worldwide hit, but nobody could sing it. I wanted to be able to sing it. I was so thrilled by it. And I was told by the publisher there would not be any words because three men who had the right to veto any lyrics that were written, Ernest Gold, the composer, of course, Chappell, the music publisher, and Otto Preminger, the director-producer of the film, professional writers had submitted lyrics, words to the song, but one or another would say, no, those aren't the words. No, we won't approve those words. And so the publisher was saying there won't be any. It'll just stay an instrumental theme. Nobody can sing it. But it was a Christmas Eve, as I've told you, and I was playing it over and over, the record, the Ferranti-Teicher piano duo record. And I just words started coming. I took dictation, and about 20 minutes, the words just poured out as I listened to the melody. And they were saying to me the words that I wrote down, and it was really God who was, I think, giving us an anthem. It has become like the second Jewish national anthem, "This land is mine." God gave this land to me, which, of course, anybody who believes the Bible knows God said himself to Abraham, later to Isaac, and later to Jacob, not to Esau, not to Ishmael. He gave them tribes of their own, and lands of their own. But he said to Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, "This land is yours forever." And it is, and it will be. And so our national destiny, America's destiny, is linked to Israel. It was Jewish people who helped fund our revolution. I mean, people don't remember that, but you do. When we were revolting against the oppression of Great Britain at the time, and the king who had made us a chattel, these colonies, we rebelled, and the Jewish people came to our aid then. Now we are coming to the aid of Israel now, and have gratefully for the last few years, with presidents who understood that our destiny is linked inevitably with that of Israel. God said, "I'll bless those who bless you. I'll curse those who curse you." And if you look at the ones who have come against Israel, they have not fared well. All the countries, all the forces that think they can eradicate this apple of God's own eye are fools, and they pay for their folly. And now we have a man apparently in office who doesn't get it, and he is siding with the Palestinians who have had their own land. They've had other countries. They still have countless millions of acres they can call their own, but they want little Israel. It's not going to happen. And if we side with Israel continually, we will be blessed. It's simple as that. If we don't, we will not fare well. And so I'm really concerned for us.
Well, I am too. And you know, it was John Adams who said, one of our greatest founding fathers, that without ethics, morality, and religion, doesn't matter how many times we change our rulers or forms of government, we will not have a lasting liberty. And that's what we see in the country today, a lack of ethics, a lack of morality, and a lack of religion. And it reflects itself with regard to how this country, at least large portions of it, view Israel. And the tragedy is, if you go into the universities today, people are being taught, the kids are being taught, that Israel's an apartheid state, that it's evil, that it's against them. And you get to the point where even the Jewish students are starting to believe it. You know, they become self-hating.
That's the tragic part. Here I'm interrupting you, but I mean, you're Jewish, so of course you're not offended, and I call myself an adopted Jew. I can't understand how real Jewish people can't see this, how they can possibly lean to the left, to the liberal, to the left, who want to take away the sovereignty of Israel, who feel, as was very prevalent in Great Britain several years ago. I wrote some columns for WorldNet Daily about who needs Israel anyway. That's what was going abroad in Great Britain. If we get rid of this little pesky country, we could have peace in the Middle East. No, we will not ever have peace in the Middle East. Or if we do, it's because we're coming to the end of all things as we know them. But that's another story. It's just, I don't understand how good Jewish people cannot be totally devoted to the homeland, to the motherland, to the place where everything we hold dear began, including our own Constitution.
That's right, Pat. You know, I can be critical. I'm a Jewish Christian, as you know. I came to Christ, but I feel very strongly about my heritage, and I'm a Zionist, and I'm proud to say I'm a Zionist. There's nothing wrong with that.
Me too.
The Arabs have made that into a dirty word, you know. But
oh yeah,
and I can talk about it. The Jewish left which, of course, if you go way back, gave us Marx and Trotsky and Alinsky and Soros. They're very destructive. They're very destructive, not just of Israel. They're destructive of the Jewish people. And I want people to understand that, because when you see these commentators on TV and they're on the Jewish left, people are going to think those are the Jewish people. They're not. They're not even Jews at all, really, because they don't believe.
No, not
generally speaking.
Even if they are in name or ethnically, they're not. No, it's really appalling, and I know that our future hangs in the balance. It doesn't resonate with too many people, but our future depends on what we do with Israel, and whether we stand with Israel or whether we abandon Israel. If we abandon Israel, we will be abandoned by the God of Israel. It's that simple.
Well, just look at history. Over 6,000 years, and frankly, the Arabs and the Muslims haven't won one major war, so it kind of tells you.
No, and all of these countries that hate Israel so much, they have their own inner turmoils. Their people suffer. They may have wealth. A lot of people in the Arab nations, for example, have great wealth, but it does not filter down to the people who are still poor and downtrodden, and where liberty does not reign in this country and the countries that adopted the Jewish principles and our foundational principles have prospered. And they're the countries where everybody wants to go and live, like America, at least up till now. I'm not sure if our immigration problem is going to be lessened because people don't want to come here anymore because of all the strife and turmoil here. But I don't know. I hate to speak so negatively because I am positive about God, about his plans for Israel. I believe Israel will survive. I believe America can survive if we'll all wake up. It's a matter of whether we care, if we're not totally ignorant about what God's will is. If we're educated in what God's will and what He's proclaimed through the centuries, then we can get in line, and we'll be blessed, and we will prosper as we have. So if we look at the history concerning what we're talking about now, we can see that this is the truth. Those who bless Israel are blessed. Those who curse Israel wind up being cursed.
Well, that's right. And I'm dealing in the courts all the time, Pat, and we make reference to the book of Isaiah, which says that the counselors and the judges are to restore the tarnished city to the faithful city. They're not doing that right now in this country. Our legal system has become incredibly corrupt. I can tell you that as a lawyer of 44 years.
Oh, yeah.
And unless we straighten out our legal system, under the 10 Commandments, which is the basis of our legal system, we're going down the drain. We've seen that just in the last several weeks with the Supreme Court abdicating its responsibility with regard to a fraudulent election, so on and so forth. We have about 30 seconds, Pat. I want to just thank you for everything that you do, because you are an inspiration and you are a beacon of light in Hollywood. But we need people like you, because Hollywood's a very powerful force and it needs to be used for the better. And it hasn't been, except for a few shining lights like you.
Well, I appreciate that. And I know not a lot of people agree with you, but there are a great many of us who do understand and who do see it clearly, and who want America to continue on a right path, a righteous path. This is interesting. The Bible says, Solomon said, the mind of the wise inclines to the right.
Let's take it. Let me bring you back for a few minutes on the last segment, Pat, to finish that thought, because it's really important. We'll be right back with Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman.
Before he was a trial lawyer, he sliced 'em and diced 'em.
People used to ask me, Larry, what caused you to start Judicial Watch and now Freedom Watch, given the powerful forces in this country that put you at risk?
In a meat packing plant.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
A very special prosecutor, Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
I'm back in the verdict section of this special prosecutor with Larry Klayman with Pat Boone. The verdict is that we have to turn back to God if we want to survive. And Pat has some final thoughts on that, so I want to hear what he has to say.
Well, I'm quoting the wisest man believed to ever have lived other than the Messiah and Solomon. And he said, the mind of the wise inclines to the right, the mind of the fool to the left. And when I mentioned that to my wife, Shirley, she said, well, he's not talking about politics. I said, no, he's talking about righteousness. He says the mind of the wise inclines to that which is righteous, the mind of the fool to whatever's left, whether it's political or social or whatever it may be. The people who are truly wise in this world want to know what the creator of all things thinks and wants, and is to determine that we have. And if we resist, we're fools. And so we're just trying to wake our country back up again and get in line with our Creator and the God who made America who we are.
So help us God. Thank you, Pat, for everything. My privilege to know you.
Thank you, Larry. Keep going, Larry. Love you.
You, Walter, the same. God bless. That's Pat Boone. And this is exactly what I try to say every single day that I do podcasts with Radio America. I obviously have this weekend show, but we need to go back to God. We need to ask for his help. In our Declaration of Independence, the Founding Fathers, against all odds, called upon divine providence to win the Revolutionary War. Now, we're in a war right now. We are in a revolution. This is why I took the time during the beginning parts of COVID, or shall we say Chi-Com-19, to write It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry. Because the American people need to have the cold, hard facts. They need to have the facts of life, is that every branch of our government, whether it's the executive branch, which is dominated by a deep state on both sides, Democrat and Republican, a legislature which is comprised of a bunch of clowns, court jesters, and criminals, frankly. You saw the way they behaved with 2 confirmations of federal Supreme Court justices, not that they were the greatest thing since sliced bread. You can see they weren't exactly what the president at the time, Trump, said they were. They threw him under the bus as well. And of course, then you have the federal judiciary, which Thomas Jefferson said would become despots and tyrants because they're unelected, unaccountable to the people. When you see things like January 6th, which in my view have been misinterpreted, this was not just a bunch of criminals. There were a couple, on both sides, left and right, but it was the American people who said, I've had enough. I'm rising up. Much like the people in Egypt, when they left and were coming upon Passover and Easter, when they left, they felt that they were enslaved. They were enslaved by the Pharaoh. And right now, the American people feel enslaved by a very corrupt government and a legal system, which is equally compromised, tainted, and frankly has acted like criminals. I have to say that as a lawyer. Sometimes I get into difficulty saying that with bar associations and the such, but I got to tell the truth because I'm not going to cover for a profession which has become the most corrupt in this country, and that's the legal profession. And you can see it. You can see how they threw the president under the bus. So when the people rose up on January 6th, this was a little miniature storming of the Bastille, in my opinion. And it wasn't violent. There were some people hurt, and we regret that, and I don't advocate that. But this was the American people saying, we've had it. We've had enough. And now we've got the radical leftists who have taken over this country, who have attempted and are doing it quite quickly to enslave us in their brand of socialism, communism, atheism. And it is time for the American people to again summon the divine providence of God and to bring this country back to the promised land sooner than the 40 years it took Moses to find it. So I want to thank Pat Boone. I want to thank Franklin Raff, who's co-hosted this show. Franklin is a great thinker. He's a tremendous talent. And we need people with talent today to communicate with the American people, because we are basically, this country is dead at this point. We need to revive it back to the vision of our founding fathers, which of course is the vision of God and his son. I'll be back next week with another edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Until then, thank you for listening to me, and stay safe.
Ooh, a fondue set. Ugh, now I need to find a coupon code.
Not anymore, Susan. Capital One Shopping instantly searches for available coupon codes and automatically applies them at checkout.
Wait, instantly?
It's called shopping smart, not hard. Download Capital One Shopping to your computer for free and let it do the work for you.
Don't mind if I fondue.
Haha, that's kind of cheesy. Capital One Shopping. It's kind of genius. What's in your wallet?
Savings and available coupons vary.
Order! Continue, Miss Garner.
With the Capital One Venture Card, you earn unlimited double miles on every purchase every day.
Objection! My credit card doesn't earn double miles on every purchase.
I object to your objection. With the Capital One Venture Card, you earn unlimited double miles on every purchase.
Order! Please read Counselor's last statement.
With the Capital One Venture Card, you earn unlimited double miles on every purchase.
I'll allow it.
No further questions, Your Honor. Well, just one. What's in your wallet?
Capital One Bank USA N.A. Capital One Bank USA N.A. Capital One